everyone, this is Sasha bringing you a video tutorial today from BP for You. And today we're going to be talking about channels. And so the channels are located over here, typically speaking, next to your layers. If you don't see them there, you can come up here to Window and you can click on Channels, and there you can see there'll be a little check mark here right next to it. If it's open, if there's no check mark, then you need to click on it and add one there. So, by default, you're going to be working in RGB mode, which consists of 3 channels, red, green, and blue. So here we've got our red, we've got our green, and we've got our blue. Now, when Photoshop sees color, it takes these channels and it smushes it into one, and we get this RGB channel. So a little background on channels, just a little bit of history for you. They have been around since Photoshop 1, which is the very first Photoshop ever made. They were around long before layers existed, and they are kind of the foundation for how Photoshop looks at the colors in your photograph. So when I click on this channel, I can see that my channel is kind of black and white here. In this, I'm looking at my red channel here. Where it's white, that tells Photoshop that there's a lot of red in that area. And where it's kind of grayish black, that tells Photoshop that there's going to be more, not any red in that area. So when we're thinking about this, for example, when we come over here, let's go ahead and make a curves adjustment layer. And let's look at this red mode here. So when I pull up on this, I'm adding red. If I were to come over here and look at this channel, you can see I have a layer open, so I can't completely click on it. But if you get a good preview of this here, you can see that my channel got a lot redder. Watch what happens when I pull this down and I start adding some cyan. You can see that it's a lot more black and white now. You can see that where the flowers are, it's very white, and where the background is, it got very, very dark. Let's talk about why this is. When I'm looking at this channel, and when I'm looking at all of the channels, red and cyan are going to be opposites, green and magenta are going to be opposites, and blue and yellow are going to be opposites. That's how it is with all the tools that you use in Photoshop. And the reason why it's like that for all the tools in Photoshop is because it's how it is with these channels here. And so there are 2 popular modes to edit your photos in. RGB comes by default, but some people prefer to edit in CMYK. CMY stands for cyan, magenta, yellow. K stands for black, but we don't have to worry about that right now. So when I'm looking at this picture, everywhere where it's white, there's red. Everywhere where it's darker, there's cyan. If I were looking at a cyan, if I were to change my color profile into the CMYK, the mask here would look exactly the same. Everywhere that it would be white, there wouldn't be cyan, there would still be red. And everywhere that it was darker, that would still be where the cyan is. So even if you change your color profile, the way that this mask is set up is not going to change. And this works and acts just like a layer mask in Photoshop. And if you need more information on that, then you can watch the video tutorial on the layers window where it talks about layer masks. So here we've got green, and again you can see that where it's darker, because green and magenta are opposites, where it's darker I'm seeing a lot of magenta. And when I look at this, yeah, I can see that there would probably be some magenta in those flowers. And everywhere where it's lighter, you're seeing more green than magenta. And when I look at the blue, everywhere that it's darker, I'm seeing yellow, which I could see that there could be some yellow in there because the flowers are kind of a warm tone. And everywhere that it's lighter, there's more blue. So when we put all those together, we get this RGB. So the reason why we can kind of look and investigate into these channels is we can use those to help us mask. So we're going to look for one of these channels that has the absolute most contrast. That's going to be the red channel. So kind of watch what I do here and sort of follow along with me. If you need to go back, you can rewind this video and kind of watch this part over again, because it's going to be a little bit of information to take in. So first I'm going to want to select this whole channel. And I could come up here to select and then go to all, or I could use the keyboard shortcut Control or Command A. And then to copy it, I want to hit Control or Command C. And then I'm going to come over here. I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to hit Control or Command V, like violin. So now I have this channel over here onto my layer mask, or onto a layer over top of my background layer. So I'm going to grab a curves layer, and I want to set a white point and a black point. I set my black point with this black eyedropper here. I select my white point with this white eyedropper here. So let's select our black point first. And so I'm going to do that by clicking right close into these flowers here without actually touching the flowers. And then I'm going to set a white point over here. There we go, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now I've got a pretty much black and white layer here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to smush these two layers together, and I just control clicked and that highlighted both of them, and then Control E or Command E will merge those layers into one layer. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to duplicate my background layer by dragging it to this page button, and I'm going to give it a layer mask. Now my goal here is to take this image and I'm going to stick it in this layer mask, and then I will have made a very intricate selection in a very small amount of time. And if I were to go through and just do this without explaining what I'm doing, I could have this done in no time. So again, I'm going to hit Control, I'm going to click on this layer here, I'm going to hit Control A and Control C, and now if you're on a Mac, that would be Command A and Command C. I'm going to come over here and I am going to do Control or Command D to deselect that. I'm going to click on this layer mask, and I want to bring this layer mask up so this is all I'm seeing. So I'm going to Alt click. If you're on a Mac, it's Option click. And then I'm going to do Control V. On a Mac, it's Command V. And Control D or Command D. Anytime that I say Control, on a Mac it's going to be Command, and anytime that I say Alt on a Mac it's going to be Option. Okay. So now I have officially made this selection here, and I can just turn this layer off, and now I would be able to work in this selection underneath this background layer here, and I could, change the color of this background. I could come up here to layer, new fill layer, solid color, and I can work around here, and I can change this a little bit to fit what I am working on. And so that is a really quick and simple way that I can go ahead and I can sort of come in here and I can work with this layer masking. Now I noticed that when I had that up that I didn't have my stems in my selection, so I could actually come up here with a white brush, set at 100% opacity, and I could just paint over this layer mask to make sure that I had those in there. So I want to make sure I've got my stems in there, and the center of this flower is a little bit darker as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull that in. So now we can do another one here. We can go up to layer, new fill layer, solid color. And again, now I've got my stems. I have my stems right here in my selection. So that is just a fun little tutorial for you on how you can kind of actually put channels to use in your photography to help you make a selection. So thank you for watching this video tutorial. Happy editing!